Your apartment is perfect for 2 weeks. My family decided without me after booking a vacation. Hi, I'm Jason, 36, and 2 months ago, I became the villain of my own family group chat because I changed my locks. It started at 11:02 p.m. on a random Tuesday. I'd just flown in from a brutal transatlantic run, Newark to Frankfurt, then a hop to Lisbon, then back through Boston. I was bone-tired, slumped on my couch still half in uniform, watching an old episode of Top Gear with one eye open when my phone buzzed. Your apartment is closer to the airport. It was my sister, Melissa. We're dropping off the kids for 2 weeks. Surprise trip. Luke booked Bora Bora. I blinked. Sat up. Reread it. 2 weeks? Of her 4 kids? In my 1-bedroom apartment? What? I typed. We leave tomorrow. This is the only window we have. Kids love you. You'll be fine. And that's when I knew this wasn't a request. It was a decree. No warning. No conversation. Just a rerouting of their parental responsibilities right onto my doorstep. And to make it worse, her next message? Mom has your spare key. She's letting us in. Something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a click, like a landing gear locking into place. I stood up, looked around my tiny, meticulously clean apartment, the one I'd busted my ass to afford after years of working my way up from regional routes, and I made a decision. I called the front desk. Hey, it's Jason West in 18C. I need to update access instructions and possibly rekey my locks. There was a pause. Everything okay, Mr. West? Not yet, I said. But it will be by tomorrow. At 8 a.m., maintenance arrived. I handed them coffee and pointed to the front door like a man finally choosing peace over family politics. They showed up at 10:47. Melissa. Her husband. 4 kids under the age of 9. 6 suitcases. And my mother, already mid-lecture. Melissa spotted me first. She marched straight across the marble lobby like she owned the place, dragging a glittery unicorn suitcase and her fury behind her. What the hell is this? She hissed. Miguel says we're not on the guest list. That you changed your locks? My mom was right behind her, already in high-volume mode. Jason, you're being ridiculous. This is family. You think we were going to rob you? I looked at the 4 kids, one trying to climb the armrest of a lobby chair, another already whining about snacks. Luke, as usual, hovered behind Melissa like a confused intern. I turned to Miguel at the front desk. They are not on my guest list. I said, calm but loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Do not let them upstairs. Copy that, Miguel said with professional neutrality, even though I could see the tiniest flicker of sympathy behind his eyes. Melissa's face turned red. You can't be serious, she snapped. We have non-refundable tickets. We already checked out of the house. The kids are excited. And you didn't tell me until 11 last night, I said. You didn't ask. You informed me. You made plans based on my life without asking if I was even here. Do you hear how insane that is? They're your nieces and nephews, my mom said, as if that word was a magic password that opened all doors. No, I said. They're your grandkids. They're their kids. I nodded toward Melissa and Luke. And this is not a pop-up daycare. It's my home. She scoffed. Your precious little apartment? Oh, excuse us for needing a break from the war zone of parenting. I took out my phone and scrolled to the transfers, banking app wide open. I held it out to her. You see that number? That's $24,812. That's how much I've sent you in the past 6 years. Rent, formula, co-signed loans, 1 broken minivan, 2 Christmases, and an entire week at that resort in Tampa you said was for the kids' mental health. Luke blinked. Wait, you kept track? I didn't even look at him. I'm a pilot. I keep track of everything. Melissa folded her arms. So what? You want a refund now? Should I Venmo you for the diapers? No, I said, stepping back. I want a boundary. And this, I gestured to the entire scene, is me setting it. My mom let out a noise between a gasp and a hiss. You're shaming your family in public. I took a breath. You put us here. They stared at me like I'd grown horns. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't flinch. Melissa's voice dropped, the way it always did before she went for the jugular. You're choosing money over your family, she said, with all the drama of a woman handing out final judgments. Over your nieces and nephews. I looked at the kids. The oldest was slumped on a suitcase, earbuds in. The youngest was chewing on her sleeve and clearly one loud sentence away from a meltdown. It wasn't their fault. None of this ever was. But I wasn't looking at them when I spoke. I looked at Melissa. I'm choosing my sanity, I said. And I'm choosing to not be treated like a walking emergency fund with a pilot's license. You are their parents. Not me. Luke stepped in, voice nervous. Come on, man. It's just 2 weeks. We figured you'd say yes like always. Exactly. That's what made my stomach turn. The certainty in their faces. The assumption. They'd already printed boarding passes. Packed bags. Probably posted an Instagram story about it. And all of it hinged on the idea that I wouldn't say no. I turned to my mom. You taught me that family means showing up. That it means sacrifice. But somehow, that rule only ever applied to me. I showed up. Again and again. I paid. I watched their kids. I booked their flights. I gave up sleep, money, and time. You called that love. I called it exhaustion. Her face twisted, but I didn't stop. I gave Melissa $24,000. And that's just the money. That's not counting the birthdays I missed because I was watching her kids. The vacation days I gave up so you and Dad could go on cruises. The therapy I couldn't afford because I was too busy making sure my sister's credit card didn't get shut off. My mom stepped forward. Her voice dropped into that tone she used when we were kids, right before she pulled rank. You're dead to me. She said it like she expected me to break. Instead, I nodded. Just once. Okay. Melissa gasped. Jason. But it was done. There was no yelling. No more bargaining. No list of justifications or please don't be mad. Just peace. They stood there stunned. And I turned to Miguel. They're not on my guest list. Please ask them to leave. He nodded. Of course, Mr. West. I walked away as they started to argue behind me, dragging their bags and confusion back toward the doors. The kids followed, quiet now. And me? I rode the elevator up to my apartment for the first time in a decade without a single ounce of guilt in my carry-on. Back upstairs, I stood in the middle of my apartment with the kind of silence that feels like an aftershock. I wasn't proud. I wasn't victorious. I was just still. For years, my life had been a series of accommodations. Red-eye flights followed by last-minute babysitting. Layovers where I wired cash instead of eating dinner. Half-slept weekends spent assembling birthday gifts I never got invited to watch them open. I sat down on my couch, stared out the window at the city, and waited for the guilt to slam back in. It didn't. Not immediately. Instead, my phone buzzed. A notification from Instagram. Melissa had posted. A picture from the plane. Her and Luke in first class, holding champagne flutes. Caption, finally taking care of ourselves. #deserved, #blessed. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so damn predictable. So much for. No backup plan. So much for. The kids are staying with you. I swiped up and opened Facebook, half curious. And there it was. My mother's latest post. Some of us give and give and give and all we get in return is betrayal. Imagine raising a son who chooses money over family. Pray for my heart. Hundreds of likes. Hugs in the comments. Cousins tagging each other. You're a saint. Some kids are just ungrateful. No names, of course. But it didn't take a genius to know who she meant. And for a split second, I wanted to respond. To write a novel-length comment. To attach screenshots of bank transfers and messages. To show the receipts, literally. But I didn't. I closed the app. Flying had taught me one thing. You can't control the weather. Only your response to it. And right now, my response was silence. They could have their narrative. I had my locks changed. And for the first time in years, I had my life to myself. The first morning after everything blew up, I woke up and panicked. Not because of a text. Not because of a favor I forgot to do. But because it was quiet. Too quiet. For years, my days off were backgrounded by the soft thrum of obligation. Group chats lighting up. Requests disguised as check-ins. Guilt dressed up as love. I'd gotten so used to it that waking up without any buzzing felt like something was broken. It wasn't. I made real breakfast. Not a granola bar in an Uber. Eggs. Toast. Coffee. Sat on my balcony like one of those people in stock photos. I even opened a book, for fun. By 11 a.m., I had a text from a cousin I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey, what happened with your mom?" She posted something kinda vague. I replied with a single line. Long overdue boundary. No explanation. No apology. I went for a walk. A real walk. No Bluetooth in my ear, no calls from Melissa asking if I could Venmo her again. Just my legs moving under me and the feeling that my time was finally mine. That night, I ordered delivery and watched a movie. Not because I was recovering from a 14-hour shift or babysitting duty, but just because I felt like it. I didn't realize how small I'd let my life become until I finally had room in it again. A few days later, my aunt called. "Just between us," she said, "your mom's been telling people you threw the kids out onto the street." I snorted. "Yeah. The doorman, the security system, and the full lobby probably begged to differ. She also let it slip that she and your dad ended up taking them." "Wait. What?" I sat up straighter. She said something about being stuck with them for 2 weeks. Complained they were too loud, but not a word about Bora Bora. I stared at the wall. So there was a backup plan. Of course there was. She's been bragging for years that Jason will take care of us when we're old. My aunt added, "You know that, right?" I figured. I muttered. Then she said something that actually stopped me cold. "You did the right thing." I didn't know what to say. She hesitated. "I've been paying my son's rent for years. He's 30. Seeing you say no, it made me think maybe I'm allowed to stop too." We talked longer than we had in ages. Not just about money. About family. About exhaustion. About the cost of being the reliable one. I hung up feeling something strange and new. Pride. Not the "look at what I've achieved" kind. The "look at what I finally stopped tolerating" kind. The next step was therapy. I'd been putting it off for years, always saying I'd start when my schedule calmed down, when the layovers weren't so brutal, when the turbulence of my life settled. It never did. So I booked a virtual session in between flights. No excuses left. The therapist, Laura, mid-40s, calm voice, eyes that didn't blink too often, listened quietly while I spilled the whole saga. The van. The cash. The 11 p.m. text about 4 kids and a tropical vacation. The moment I said, no, and they acted like I'd committed a felony. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "You know this is parentification, right?" I blinked. "What is?" "What they've done. Since you were a teenager. Treating you like a third parent. Like the financial backstop. That's not family. That's emotional and financial enmeshment." It sounded dramatic. Too clinical. I almost laughed it off. But then she kept going, naming things I thought were just part of being the oldest, the responsible one. And suddenly, I felt seen in a way I hadn't before. "Let me guess," she said. "Anytime you pushed back, they told you were selfish. That you were lucky. That they needed you." I just nodded. "Jason," she said gently, "being generous doesn't mean you owe people your life. And having boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you healthy." I almost cried. Not because it hurt. But because no one had ever said that to me before. Not without an asterisk. After that, I started making small changes. I canceled the automatic monthly transfer I'd set up for Melissa's. Just in case. Emergencies. I closed the shared credit card my mom guilted me into opening. For the kids. I even revised my will. Because yeah, that existed, and guess who pressured me to include them when I first started flying? I replaced their names with a nonprofit that funds scholarships for young pilots. I stared at that signature line for a while before signing it. Because this time, I wasn't cutting people out of my life. I was cutting out access. And it felt like finally locking the cockpit door. On my next long stretch of days off, I did something wild. I booked a vacation, for myself. Not a family trip. Not a surprise flight for someone else. Not some half-price crew benefit with standby stress. A real, actual trip. Paid in full. Ocean view. Breakfast included. No kids, no guilt. When I reached the gate, I stood in the boarding line holding my own suitcase, not a car seat or a tablet full of Peppa Pig episodes. It felt wrong at first. Like I'd stolen it. Like someone was going to appear and say, Hey, actually, Melissa's furnace exploded and now you're flying to Ohio. But no one did. I boarded the plane, put on noise-canceling headphones, and closed my eyes before takeoff. The strangest part? I didn't even need the escape. For the first time in a long time, my life wasn't something I needed a break from. When I got back, tan and rested and about 8 pounds heavier from the buffet, I walked into my apartment and just stood there. Still mine. Still quiet. Still not ransacked by 4 children with sticky fingers and aggressive appetites. The group chat was silent. The emergency money train? Derailed. And slowly, the shame they tried to pin on me began to unravel. Because nothing fell apart when I stopped fixing everything. Melissa found other sitters. Luke got a second job. My parents watched the kids after all, even after insisting they couldn't possibly. The world didn't end. No one died of starvation. They figured it out, because they had to. And that's what hit me. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd forced growth. Not just in them, but in me. I'd always imagined freedom would come after some major career breakthrough, or a bonus check, or an award. But it didn't. It came the moment I said, "No. You don't get to make me feel guilty for living my own life." My dad called me 3 weeks later. Just once. That alone was weird. He's more of a pass the phone to your mother kind of guy. But this time, he called me directly. I answered, expecting some weird angle, maybe a backdoor plea to patch things up. Instead, he cleared his throat like he was about to deliver a weather report. "You know your mother's upset," he said. I figured. "She says you disrespected her?" "And Melissa." I waited. I'd heard this script before. But then he surprised me. "I also know how much you've helped them," he added, voice quieter. "I've seen your name on their bank statements more than once." I didn't say anything. Just let it sit there like a truth no one had ever had the courage to speak aloud. I should have said something sooner. He continued. "I didn't. That's on me." The silence between us was uncomfortable, but not cold. "I don't agree with what they did. That Bora Bora thing? That wasn't right." I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was the first real acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy. That I hadn't imagined the imbalance. "Thanks for saying that," I said finally. He didn't push for more. Didn't ask me to fix it. Didn't say, "You know how your mother gets." He just let it rest. "I hope you're taking care of yourself up there," he said. "I am," I replied. And for once, it was the truth. Melissa stayed silent for months. No texts. No calls. Not even a birthday message, though I saw her view the notification on Instagram. Then, 6 months later, I got a message. Just, "Hey." I stared at it for a long time. Another bubble popped up. "Not asking for money." I exhaled. Then, I just wanted to say, "We found a sitter. We budgeted. It sucked, but we did it." I waited. Then came the closest thing she'd ever sent to an apology. "I shouldn't have tried to dump the kids on you like that. Luke said if anyone did that to us, we'd lose it." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, thumb hovering. Finally I typed. "I'm glad you figured it out. You're their parents. You'll find a way." She didn't argue. Didn't guilt trip. Just replied, "Yeah. I guess we will." It wasn't some magical repair. But it was the first time the ask didn't follow the hello. And that felt bigger than anything money could buy. Things didn't magically heal. There were no tearful reunions, no grand apologies over Thanksgiving stuffing, no group hugs under twinkling Christmas lights. But something shifted. The calls stopped being one-sided. The messages, when they came, weren't framed in crisis. I wasn't asked to bail anyone out or cover for a bad decision dressed up as fate. Melissa still posted curated chaos to Instagram, but now I saw the kids wearing the same uniforms I'd paid for years ago, only now, she mentioned budgeting for them herself. The group chat stayed quiet. I didn't leave it. I didn't mute it. I just stopped being the first responder. And for once, no one panicked. Mom never apologized. But she stopped texting me passive-aggressively about sons who forget who fed them. She stopped tagging me in vague posts about betrayal and loneliness. Eventually, she even sent me a photo of the kids playing in the backyard with a simple caption. "They missed their uncle." I didn't respond. Not right away. Not out of pettiness, just preservation. Because I wasn't racing to fix things anymore. I wasn't offering immediate proof that I was still a good son, a good brother, a good man. I was just living my life. Flying, resting, breathing. One night, I landed back home after a red-eye from Tokyo, walked into my apartment, and collapsed onto the couch with takeout. My apartment was still clean. Still mine. There were no toys on the floor, no dishes in the sink that weren't mine, no background hum of someone else's need. I'd finally stepped out of a role I never auditioned for. And the strangest part? No one died. The family didn't crumble. The kids still laughed. Melissa and Luke still posted vacation photos. My mom still wore her martyr crown, just with a slightly looser grip. They learned how to stand without leaning on me. And I learned how to rest without guilt pressing into my chest like a seatbelt you can't adjust. For the first time, I didn't feel angry when I thought about them. I just felt done. And that's not the same as broken. That's freedom. 6 months later, I was flying a domestic leg, Denver to Seattle, smooth skies, early arrival, a captain's dream. I got into the hotel, dropped my bag, and as I was kicking off my shoes, my phone buzzed. It was my cousin Nate. Yo. You free for dinner in town tonight? Heard you're flying through. I stared at the message. Nate was one of the ones who liked all of Mom's "Pray for my heart" posts. I typed back. Yeah, I'm around. You picking the spot? We met up at a quiet sushi place a few blocks from the hotel. Casual. No drama. Over miso soup, he leaned in and said, Hey. I gotta admit something. Here we go, I thought. I believed all of it. He said. The Facebook stuff. I thought you snapped. But then my mom talked to your aunt. And I saw the screenshots. The money. The text from your sister. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He shook his head. Dude, you carried everyone? For years. I don't know how you didn't lose your mind. I laughed softly. I almost did. Nate nodded, sipping his drink. I just want you to know, some of us get it now. That moment wasn't life-changing. But it was another small crack in the myth my family built about me, that I was selfish, cold, distant. Turns out, you only look distant when you finally draw a line. The more people heard the full story, the more I stopped feeling like a villain in my own family. I became something else, something harder to define. A person with limits. A man who said no and didn't immediately chase after it with an apology. Later that night, back in the hotel, I sat by the window and looked at the runway, lights blinking in the dark. A plane took off in the distance, a sound I've heard a million times. But this one felt like something else. Like a clean slate. Like leaving on my terms. Not because I had to. Not because they pushed me. Just because I finally could. 2 weeks after that dinner with Nate, I got a letter. An actual letter, ink envelope, return address in my parents' handwriting. I stared at it like it was a bomb. Part of me wanted to toss it straight into the recycling bin and keep my peace intact. But curiosity's a stubborn thing. I opened it. It wasn't from my mom. It was from my dad. It started with Jason, and immediately I knew he'd written it alone. I've been thinking about how things used to be. And how they got to where they are. Your mother and I were raised to believe the eldest son carries the load. That family is sacrifice. But I think we misunderstood something. You didn't turn your back on the family. You turned your back on being the only one holding it up. And that's not the same thing. I had to reread that part twice. He went on. I'm not good at this. I don't talk much. You know that. But I want you to know I saw it. The way you gave, even when it cost you. I wish I'd said thank you sooner. I'm saying it now. No ask. No conditions. Just that. I sat with that letter for a long time. It didn't fix everything. But it gave me something I didn't know I needed, witness. Not just approval. Acknowledgement. He saw it. And maybe, slowly, that would be enough to loosen the old knots in my chest. The next flight I worked was a short hop, nothing glamorous. Just Sacramento to Phoenix. But as I prepped the cabin, I noticed a mom with 3 kids juggling backpacks and a stroller, clearly overwhelmed. She looked up at me with the same frantic exhaustion I'd seen in Melissa 100 times. I helped her lift the bags into the overhead bin. Made the kids laugh with the safety demo. Got them extra apple juice before takeoff. I didn't do it out of guilt. I didn't do it because someone expected me to. I did it because I chose to. And that was the difference. Last week, I came home from a 3-day run, Unlocked my door, and just stood there. Same apartment. Same quiet. Same peace. The spare key? Still in my drawer. Not in my mom's purse. Not in Melissa's glove box. Mine. There's a photo on my fridge now. Me, standing on a beach in Portugal, holding a coffee and smiling, not for anyone else, not performing for social media, just me. Free. My bank account is stable. My sleep isn't haunted by guilt. My time feels mine again. Melissa texts occasionally. No asks. Just pictures of the kids. I send back a thumbs up, sometimes a smile. We're not close. But we're civil. My mom hasn't called in a while. But my dad does. Quietly. Sometimes with recipes. Sometimes just to ask what city I'm flying over. And me? I'm still in the sky. Still choosing where I land. Because I didn't lose my family. I just stopped letting them fly my plane.